Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios, and if you have watched the VIP download section on the ARTFX Studios website in the last 2 days, you might have noticed that I've uploaded 2 new RACKS to the download section. These 2 RACKS, I've developed them because I have been working a lot on processing and resampling lately, and I found that these 2 RACKS really help me to make better music. Now, they really help me during the sound design and resampling process because they sort of like give you more control over what is gonna come out of your DHW. So let's get down to business, and I'm gonna show you these RACKS and what they do. I've got a really simple project right here. I'm working on this project and I'm gonna do a bass design video about the kind of like the bass sound that I've got in here. It consists of 2 groups and 1 audio track. The audio track just contains some kind of a percussion sample that sounds like this. Really simple, just added some reverb to give it some room. I've got a drum group that consists of a kick, a snare, or 2 snares actually, and a hi-hat. The drum group on itself sounds like this. Really simple, but it works, and you don't really have to do something really difficult. You can see, if I zoom in, I've got some swing on these offbeat kicks. I like swing. Swing really adds sort of like a little bit more of a funky sound to your drums. I mean, without the swing, this drum loop on its own would not sound as funky as it sounds right now. Of course, the whole funkiness comes from the instruments you're gonna add afterwards, but having a little bit of swing on your drums definitely works to create a little bit more of a funky vibe, even when you're not going to use funky sounds. So I like it, sounds pretty glitchy maybe. I would add some percussion, I guess, to this to create it, to turn it to a final track, but now we get to the bass group. It consists of 4 samplers. These are 4 tracks with a sampler loaded on it, and in that sampler I've got a sort of like a Reese kind of bass sound. It's a Reese with a lot of modulation and a lot of different sounding, sort of like bass sounds in one audio file. I can show you that, how the audio file looks. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's faster stuff, slower stuff, and that really helps to make a really good bass track. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail about what I do inside the sampler. I'm going to do that in the next bass design video, so keep your eye on the channel for that. Other than that, I want to talk about 2 RACKS that I've developed, and the first one is a frequency splitter, and the second one is a mid-side splitter. So, to be able to show you what they do and how I use them in this particular project, I'm going to play you this project first. If you have looked at my SoundCloud, you've already heard it, but if not, then let's have a listen. There we go. So, I really like that, and it definitely sounds, well, unlike anything I've created so far. And I really found out that the frequency splitting and the mid-side splitting really helps to make this bass a lot better. So on this bass I've got my sampler. After the sampler I've got the frequency splitter. Now, the frequency splitter is adding quite some stuff to the bass. I mean, without the frequency splitter, the bass track will sound like this. And I mean, the bass sounds pretty good, and it definitely has that tone that we hear in the final project, but especially when I play this together with the drums, it sort of like lacks a little bit of power, and it lacks a little bit of presence in the mid frequencies, I guess. The high frequencies are not that well filled out either, so I found out by using the frequency splitter, I can turn this into this. I'm still keeping that low end intact. I mean, the sub is totally unaffected. And I could even add some saturation to the sub if I want. The mids, I can throw on all kinds of effects if I want. If you're going to download this rack, there's not going to be any effects on here. The only thing that's going to be on here is the multi-band dynamics on the high frequencies, the multi-band dynamics right here on the mids, and you're gonna have the multi-band dynamics on the sub with a utility afterwards, and that utility is gonna make the sub band mono because you don't want to have a stereo sub. So you can just load this on a bass track, on a track that you're working on. It will split the frequencies into 3 bands, and you will instantly get your full sub signal, and you can throw effects on the mid and high frequencies. So you can put different distortion on the mids, you can put different distortion on the highs, you can widen just the high frequencies, and that really helps to control the bass sound, to make sure that it's gonna sound as good as possible. If I'm gonna add distortion to my bass sound, I most likely don't want to distort the sub frequencies, you know, and I don't want to have sub frequencies feeding into the distortion because it's also going to trigger the distortion. When I'm only feeding in the mid frequencies, then it will only trigger the distortion with the mid frequencies, and thus it's going to sound much cleaner when I'm distorting both these bands individually. You know, I can have a really heavy distortion on the mids, then compressing the mids down to bring that volume back to what it was, and then I can put a little bit more softer, maybe a little bit more gentle distortion on the high frequencies, and therefore really control how the final sound's gonna come out. I find that using frequency splitting is a really big key to getting big sounding basses, and really to control the dynamic range of the basses itself. So, that being said, that frequency splitter rack is now available at the ARTFX Studios website, and it's also available in the pack. So if you haven't downloaded any of my racks before, if you have a VIP membership, you can go to the website and you can simply just download the full package. It's a zip file with all the racks in there. That full package will contain all the different individual Ableton racks that I've got on the ARTFX Studios website. The next rack, and to show you that one, I need to go to the group track. On this group track, I've put a rack that I've also developed. The first thing right here is my external audio effect, which is basically just my compressor. I'm using the hardware Alesis 3630, which is my hardware compressor that I've used to compress this bass track. I find that using that compressor really helps to get a little bit more volume and to even out the lowest and highest peaks. Then after the external audio effect, I've got my mid-side splitter. Now the mid-side splitter is a really helpful tool because it has a mid band and a side band. Now what you can do with this is sometimes, especially when you're working on bass sounds that have a lot of modulation and have a lot of detuning and phasing going on, that movement will most likely create some stuff going on in the stereo sides of the spectrum. So let's pretend we have a bass sound with a lot of modulation in there. There's some detuning going on and there's some phasing going on. It might happen that on the stereo sides of the spectrum, the sound is going to become louder during a specific phrase of the bass line because of the modulation going on. And it's it could happen that it's going to be louder in the stereo sides of the spectrum than that it's going to be in the mid. Now you might think, well, is that a problem? Well, it's not really a problem. But when you start putting effects on that particular bass track, and you set these effects up according to the main part of the bass line, then as soon as it reaches that point where that peak in the stereo sides is going to kick in, that peak will be much higher than the initial volume of the bass line, and therefore it will trigger all of the effects that are on the track. So if you've got a compressor on there which is just taking off the small little bits of the peaks of the normal part of the bass line, then as soon as it's going to reach that part where the stereo sides are going to come up, that compressor will be triggered much harder and it will introduce a lot more gain reduction. Now, because you've then put that compressor on the full bass track, it's also going to affect the mid frequencies, which might not be that much louder during that phrase. To counterattack that, I've created the mid-side splitter, and it has both a mid and a side band, and you can compress the mid and side band individually. And that really helps for me, if I have a bass sound that has some kind of a spike in the stereo side of things, I can put a compressor on just that band, or I can compress the mid band different from that band. I find that is really helpful because when that happens, and when that gain reduction is being triggered a lot more, the mid side of the stereo spectrum is not going to be affected and will keep that same volume. So that's really helpful, and you can also use it to make stuff wider. For instance, if I want to make a bass sound wider, I can just bring up this volume, and it will only bring up the wider parts of the sound. It will not boost the mid stuff. It will not boost everything that's in the mono side of things. It will only boost the stuff that's on the stereo side of things. So that's really helpful. If I want to make a bass sound, for instance, that is really heavy on the stereo widening, and I want to narrow that bass down a little bit, I can put this on here, and I can bring the volume down of the sideband. So that's a really helpful tool, and I can show you, without the mid-side stuff, this bass sounds like this. And then I've added the mid-side with some distortion and a chorus on the side. Yeah, I've got a chorus and some distortion with isotope trash on the sideband. And that turns the sideband from this, which is almost nothing, into this. So that combined with the mid part of things, now this is without, and this is with. So you can hear how that really brought up the high frequencies, and it made everything sound a little bit wider. The whole bass sounds much wider now because I've added only distortion to the side. And the mids are basically unaffected. They just stay the way they are. I could add a little bit of compression to the mids. That might help. And other than that, the side really is becoming much fatter now. And because there's also a little bit of bass in the side, it's gonna make the whole bass sound much fatter. You need to be aware and pay attention that you're not getting too much low or sub frequencies in the sideband, because those might start to cancel out the sub frequencies in the midband. If that's happening, what you can do is add another EQ at the end of the sideband and just simply take out all of the sub frequencies. So that's it about these racks. You can get them now at the ARTFX Studios website. I'm going to post a link up to the website in the description below this video. So on my website you can click on the VIP area button in the menu. Right there you can get your membership and you can get access to all of the Ableton racks that I've uploaded on my website and that I've developed in the past. And there's also a couple of different massive presets. There are some instrument racks, and I'm also going to upload a lot more stuff there. yeah, so if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. There's going to be a tutorial about this kind of bass patch that I've created. I'm gonna cover the entire production of this bass patch. It's not gonna be the exact same sound, but it's gonna be a really, really similar kind of sound, because I think when you remember this technique and apply it to different kind of sounds, you can get a lot of different bass sounds, and you can use this technique over and over and over again to create a lot of different stuff. Yeah, subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, then please post them in the comment below. Email me at contact@artfxstudios.com, or you can come to my website. On there I have a forum about music production on which you can ask your questions. You could ask your questions on Twitter as well, which is @ARTFX I'll get back at you as soon as possible. If I have a decent answer. If I don't have a decent answer, I will not really get back at you. I might send you a message back just to ask you for some more details. But if you think your question requires a very in-depth, detailed answer, then I really advise you to go to my forum. Because on my forum I can use screenshots and I can type as much text as I need. As for instance on Twitter I can only type, 180 characters, something like that. So if you have a good question, then please feel free to ask them. I'm also working on doing some Q&A type articles on my website with some popular producers. If you have a question for a popular producer, then let me know either in a comment below or through my email. I prefer my email, by the way. You can find my email address in the description below. So in the email you'll have to include the artist name you want your question to be asked to, and then you're gonna insert all the questions that you want to ask to that artist. I'm gonna collect a lot of questions, and then I'm going to connect the artist that I've got a lot of questions for, and I'll ask that artist these questions and see if they want to answer them. If they do, I'll post that as an article, sort of like a question and answer type article, sort of like an interview on the ARTFX Studios website. So if you have any questions or requests for interviews or Q&A style articles with particular producers, then let me know in a comment below or through my email, and I'll try to get back at you as soon as possible. That's it for today. There's gonna be a new bass design video coming up really soon about sine compression, and after that I'm gonna do a bass design video about this particular bass patch. So I hope you like this and have a nice day. Peace.